Come see us on tour in Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.
The madness is passing, but the Democrats are the last ones to know. I got to say, this is the Democrats' Spinal Tap and puppet show moment. Screaming on the House floor about children's genitals, as you will see. House clears bill banning transgender women from girls' sports. Crazy idea. A bill preventing transgender women from competing in female sports at schools across the country narrowly cleared the House of Representatives Tuesday. Just 2 Democrats joined with 216 Republicans in voting for the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which states that schools receiving federal funds would violate the law if they, quote, permit a person whose sex is male to participate in an athletic program or activity that is designated for women or girls.
So this just real quick, this again took 2 Democrats. Do you know the majority of the country is for this bill?
Not only is the majority of the country in support of it, even in liberal states, even in New York, the majority of people are for this. This is a great example of where, in order to have a politics from the left without an economics, they had to go to crazy town.
Yep.
They had to go, especially once gay marriage passed, they had nowhere to go with these issues but crazy town. Because you had achieved a reasonable level of non-discriminatory policy. Now you have all these NGOs like GLAAD. How are they going to fundraise? They have to outrage people. How do you outrage people? Go after their kids. Go after their kids and cultivate increasingly arcane, bizarre ideas that are completely against community standards. So when the community reacts against it, you can say, you have to send us more money now to defend puberty blockers for 8-year-olds. This is why I've been saying for as long as we've had a show. You want to build a left movement? Every time this shit comes up, you got to scream, we're not with them. We do not come to the party with them. We don't believe in this. This is not what the left is about. All 206 nay votes came from Democrats. Representative Don Davis voted present, while a pair of Texans, Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez, bucked party lines to back the bill. Common sense is back in charge, the bill's co-sponsor, Representative Greg Stube, declared on X ahead of its passage. With a soon-to-be Republican trifecta, my bill reflects a mandate from the American people. No men in women's sports. Manhattan Rep. Jerry Nadler and other Dems denounced the measure as a cruel attack on transgender children,
God.
with Nadler even suggesting that the measure could allow authorities to subject biological women to genital examination. We're going to see a montage of this. It's pretty nuts. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, like other legislation the House has taken up early in the 119th Congress, was approved along party lines by the lower chamber in the 118th Congress, only to languish in the Democrat-controlled Senate.
I got your lower chamber right here.
Yeah. The GOP is hopeful that the measure will pass the Republican-controlled Senate and head to President-elect Donald Trump's desk after he takes office next week. However, the bill requires 60 votes to clear a filibuster. Senator Tommy Tuberville, a former college basketball... I don't know where they get these names from, man.
I got a tuber. I got a tuber for you. Got your tuber right here.
With a name like Tuberville, he knows what a tuber is, and he knows where it belongs and where it does not.
Mr. Hegseth, what is a Tuberville?
In my town, if they said a Tuberville's coming for you, you buttoned up your pants real quick.
You got a Tuberville steak for me?
A former college football coach has introduced a Senate version of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act that is co-sponsored by almost 36 of his GOP colleagues. Tuesday's vote comes 5 days after a judge nixed the Biden administration's attempt to expand Title IX rules to include transgender and gay people to classes protected from sex discrimination in public education. President Biden's administration attempted to broaden the interpretation of sex to encompass gender identities, a move that conservative critics contended would have stymied efforts to safeguard women's sports and other all-female spaces. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act amends Title IX to ensure that, quote, sex shall be recognized based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. It further clarifies that sex will be recognized based solely on one's genetics at birth and reproductive biology. A key provision of the bill underscores that recipients of federal funds are allowed to have males train with women, provided that no female is deprived of a roster spot on a team or scholarship opportunities. It's funny how they're so obsessed with protecting the small minority of trans people. No interest in protecting women and girls.
None.
At all. None. Are they see, they're not cool anymore. They're not the cool protected class anymore. Roughly 3% of high school students in the U.S. classify themselves as transgender, which, from my knowledge of that, that's a huge jump from like 0.06.
Huge jump. So a lot of that is social contagion.
Yes, which most people believe, which we'll see. Per data from the plurality do. Per data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Transgender rights had been a hot topic in the 2024 election cycle, with some Democrats identifying it as a factor in their lackluster showing. Right, you think? Representative Seth Moulton, for instance, caused a stir by suggesting that he didn't want his two daughters getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. Moulton voted against the bill Tuesday, telling Politico it was, quote, not the sort of balanced, fairness-oriented policy I've advocated for, and I won't vote yes on this bill just because it is the first option that comes to the floor. Trump has previously indicated he would back restrictions intended to safeguard female athletics. All right, so this video really has to be seen to be believed. So this is from the Women Are Real account. Normies across the U.S., let's protect girls by keeping their sports and locker rooms single sex. The Democrats having a normal one. Genital inspections, Taliban, sexual assault, little girls' underwear. So, yeah, this really has to be seen to be believed.
Obsession with monitoring kids' genitals is absolutely the problem. Yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country.
That empowers pedophiles and predators.
The girl athletes who could be subject to genital inspections.
All girls at risk of intrusive questions and physical genital examinations.
We do not need Taliban-like enforcers in our
schools.
This mean hiring potential predators to peek at the private parts of kids in locker rooms? Now that sounds like an actual problem to me.
We know there is only one logical conclusion to this. This is interrogation of young girls about their bodies.
So they're pretending.
This is asking people to show.
Okay.
So they're pretending that they're protecting young girls when they're fucking doing the exact opposite of protecting young girls. That is just what an amazing sleight of hand that's not working.
Okay, so this has been one of my beats for a long time. So I was talking to Keaton before we started. I would love to find out who comes up with these ideas, because I can tell you this has been the party line for a while. Someone decided the best approach to turning this back on the opponents of these policies would be to turn the pedophilia and grooming accusation back on them by making deranged claims about how you would establish sex and by trying to portray them as the groomers, because this has been around for a while. Emma Vigeland, if you remember, I did that super cut of her really deranged rant about why women's sports shouldn't exist if trans people can't participate. And she said at one point in that overall clip, well, how are they going to check? They're going to put their hands up your skirts. Lance from the Surfs, when he was on Tim Pool, tries to go in that direction with Jazz Jennings, who really I hope one day gets justice for what her parents did to her. He says, why are you so obsessed with her genitals? That's kind of weird. And Tim Pool, it just, to his credit, he goes, that's not going to work on me. That's not going to work on me. So they decided the best approach was going to be to take this tack, that it's actually perverse to try to keep biological males out of the girls' locker rooms. That that's actually the perverts and the groomers are not the people who are trying to introduce really adult ideas about sex and sexuality to prepubescent children. It's the people who think that girls have a right to a single-sex space. Those are the perverts. And these are the brilliant minds that lost to a reality TV star twice. After the second time after years and years of lawfare. This is the kind of thinking that went into the Men for Harris commercial.
Show them what is underneath their underwear. That is what we're talking about.
Would have to verify her gender by an exam of her external and internal anatomy, traumatizing girls who happen to be late and physically maturing or naturally have a more athletic build to satisfy extreme political agendas is fear-mongering and not leadership. It's cowardice and downright creepy. And who would be doing these inspections?
Strangers, adult.
In a world of 23andMe, Ancestry.com, over-the-counter DNA tests, how on earth could we possibly establish sex without going and examining people's genitals? I just can't think of a possible way that you could do it that didn't involve examining children's genitals.
Men could ask girls as young as 4 years old personal questions about their body. And so my question is, they say it's about protecting girls, but for people listening at home, is it protecting girls to empower strangers to question your daughter about what's in their pants? No, it's disgusting. Is it
girls in danger of sexual?
Now, I got to say, for the most part, the way this would probably be enforced, I would imagine would be with birth certificates. Like, I don't see why you would really need to go beyond that. And if you did have an extreme case where you had some credible reason to believe there was a fake birth certificate, then you would go to a blood test. Like, in what world would you ever get to what they're describing here?
And if all else fails and you have to do a genital inspection, you call in Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
Abuse. And I hear my colleagues say, no, this wouldn't require genital exams.
And girls to invasive, humiliating medical examinations and physical inspections.
Look at it, all
This is an
from the
attack
same
on
choir
the mental
book.
and sexual safety of all girls in this country as young as kindergarten.
Little girls would be forced to have their, quote, biological sex verified through humiliating physical examinations of their genitals by strangers.
And subjecting our children to potentially dangerous situations
Wow.
in their schools.
Wow.
And we won't stand for it.
You guys
It's
are
all just completely coordinated
protecting
around this
girls
one
to empower adult men
insane
to
talking
ask your
point.
daughter to inspect what's in her pants while you're not around? No, that is pedophilia. It is predatory behavior.
Or to invasive and degrading, humiliating physical examinations of children.
It requires her to answer an adult's humiliating questions.
Oh my
It will
God.
accelerate our national crisis of sexual assault on young women and girls.
Yeah, so they decided the jujitsu move was the
Yeah.
people who want
Yep.
your daughter to share a locker room with men. They're the perverts, not you, not you. So so showing how the Democrats really have their finger on the pulse, and they're really persuading people with this kind of rhetoric. They actually lost ground in public opinion between 2021 and 2023. This is Gallup. In May 2021, they never had most people buying into this shit. 62% thought people should only play on teams that match their birth gender, meaning their birth sex. By 2023, that had grown to 69%. So this is what this kind of lunatic ranting has done for the numbers. This is more recent. This is June 2024. 66% of adults opposed it by then. And this is from inside that article from the Post. 66% oppose. And they'll say, well, they don't know any LGBTQ people. 72% personally know a friend, relative, or coworker who is gay or lesbian. It's not about hating people. It's about freaking common sense. 48% of those aged 18 to 29 are influenced by current popular culture to identify with an LGBTQ plus identity, even if it's not their true identity. So 48% believe that that's what's really behind this. So this is what all of this influence campaign has done. They've actually lost people because most people probably hadn't really thought about it until they forced them to. And the more they thought about it, the more they were like, hang on, what are you saying? So you look at that, and we've covered, there are much more significant and visible examples of the complete collapse of the Democratic Party this week. The fires where you are right now, the peace deal that Trump just brokered. But sometimes it's the sideshow that really gives you the most visible example of what's going on. You watch them screaming about the Taliban and genital exams on the House floor over what most people, the polling shows, and just common sense will tell you, it would just take as a given, like, of course, biological males should not be competing against women. And you put on that kind of a coordinated, deranged display, well, this is how they got where they are today. This is why they become essentially politically irrelevant.
I mean, it's another version of Joe Biden is sharp and focused. You think if you just say it in unison over and over and over, that people will just fucking believe it, and that it's not the case. They're bad at politics. They are bad at politics.
Yes,
they're literal. They are. I've never seen a better example of cult thinking than the Democratic Party today. I mean, from Joe Biden is sharp and focused to Trump is a dictator, to he's never going to leave office, to Russia runs our elections, to masks will save you from a virus that is smaller than the holes in your mask, to all of it, to the believing in big pharma, there's no better example. And then now this is.
Well, it's amazing. They just got their asses kicked, partly on the strength of ads that hammered this particular issue most infamously. And this is the hill you still want to die on? Really?
It has to be that it's because it really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they're doing this to garner donations. Right. So the money's going to flow through the Democratic Party as long as they keep pushing their agenda, their ideology. It doesn't matter if they lose. They're going to get more money when Trump wins. They're going to get more money. So I think that's what this is probably. That's why it doesn't have an effect. Winning or losing doesn't really have an effect.
Maybe. I mean, I think you're going to end up with a lot of Lindy Lees. Or because nobody likes to keep losing, I mean, if the party has no power, these people with money, there's only so much support they're going to be able to get from them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I live in California. It's been super majority Democrat since I moved here, maybe, but definitely for the last decade or so. And they all run on Medicare for all. Nobody gets it.
Right. Right.
They all run on education. They all run on fixing homeless. Nothing ever happens. They all it's even when they when they talk about climate change, right? When Newsom got in, the first thing he did was a fast track fracking permits and shit like that. Joe Biden opened up the Arctic and all that stuff. So this is obviously they don't even believe the shit they're saying. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in California now, because I used to say it all the time when Bernie was running, is that, hey, you want to see what it looks like to have a majority, the Democrats in power? Look at California.
Right.
Look what happens when they actually get power. We have supermajority and a Democratic governor, and they never bring up Medicare for all. They never do it. They never bring it up. So it's all bullshit. It's all theater. And it just proves that the two parties both serve Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, blah, blah.
I think we're looking at something kind of like the Reagan Revolution, where the Democrats are going to essentially be out of power nationally for a decade or more.
Yeah.
And whatever, if they still exist, if they haven't been displaced by another party, what they look like at the end of that is going to be very different from this.
Well, the problem with the Reagan Revolution was that the Democrats didn't decide to fight it in a real way.
Well, they decided to join
it.
Yeah.
So, again, if that last story we did about Trump being the champion of the unions, I mean, if that is
right,
if that holds true, it will be a complete realignment of the parties. It's already happened in a big way because of Tulsi and RFK Jr. and his anti-war and non-intervention and rhetoric. If he follows through on that, if he follows through on what he's doing for the union workers, I'm talking about Trump. Yes, this will be a complete realignment of the parties.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the composition, Republicans lost the rich vote this year. Is the only vote they lost. They lost with voters making over $100,000 a year.
Right.
And they won with voters making under $100,000 a year. That's unheard of. Like, that never happens. It never happens that people making $100,000 a year more vote Democrat in a majority. But yep, that happened this time. And so to a large extent, that's already underway.
Come see us on tour in Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.